Be a legendary leader. Fireground failures are leadership failures. Learn the skills to be a legendary leader in the firehouse and on the fireground. Go to firegroundcompany.com.
On today's episode of the Fireground Company podcast, we break down hose deployment at garden apartment fires and the common mistakes that compromise fireground operations.
The Fireground Company podcast.
What flavor you got there?
I wanted to start aggressive with the sour apple because it's not what I usually do.
That's aggressive?
Sour apple for my taste buds is aggressive when it comes to Choco Go. It's not usually what I do.
What's your usual?
It's the one that's almost Dr. Pepper-ish. I forget it's that. I don't know what the hell it's called.
Black cherry or something like
Yeah. Black cherry. You're right. Yeah, and then I probably secondary the blue. I made it's like a raspberry or something.
Oh yeah,
I like that. Those are like 1 and 2, 3. Now 3 goes back and forth between orange and the what did I say? Sour apple. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, there you go. Now you know.
Now you know.
All right, so we're gonna start.
Yeah.
All right, I can start this.
You can start this one.
Yeah. All I'm gonna say is the recent fire we went to yesterday basically brought to a head all the Hoseline stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So it's worth going over, unpacking a little, and telling people about. So I don't know if you want to start that somehow or you just want to just roll with it.
No, I mean, I think you said it. Like, it was just a moment where a lot of the stuff we talk about tactically, skill-wise, it just all became very real. I think both of us were really frustrated.
Yeah, well, it's all mistakes we've made. I mean, it's stuff mistakes we've made. We realized we made them, and then we went back and thought about it. I definitely thought about what I could have done differently. And then I guess the thing that can be frustrating is you're trying to get that information out to other people, but until they, I think, have that failure, they don't. Because I guess it was the same thing with me. Like, until I have that failure, it's almost like you don't know you have that problem until you're really hit with it.
Yeah.
It's there. Other people can see it. It's almost like the dude that's in a bad relationship, right? So the guy that's in a bad relationship, he has that toxic freaking girlfriend that, no one likes or whatever. And all the other dudes are like, she's a disaster. You need to run away from that. Everyone sees it but you until something big happens. And then like, it's unbelievable, dude. She left me and she's hanging out with this other guy now. Like, yeah, dude, everyone knew that. Could have told you that's where that was heading. So I don't know, it's a weird tangent, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I think until you see it, you experience it really for yourself, and you almost make the mistake that you don't take it seriously. But the problem with, I think, making the mistake is if you make the mistake and the odds are against you that day, you're going to have a catastrophic failure, possibly injuries, line of duty death, all that stuff. And that's the reason why I think it's worth getting the message out there about some of this stuff and people buying into it. So why make a mistake that someone else has already made and they can give you the answer to most likely not do it? So anyway, I mean, I'll set the stage. So fire, dispatch to a fire. Second due engine, first due engine calls their own order, so we're going to position out of the way. The fire building's a garden apartment, and the way we come in from the road, we see the Charlie side, and it's 3 in the rear, 2 in the front. I guess the actual labeling, I think, of the building was Terrace 1, 2. So again, 3 stories, side Charlie. The front, you walk directly into floor 1, you have the terrace below you, and then the second floor. So as you walk up to the building, you can see there's fire on the first floor. So there's fire on the first floor, which would, on the Charlie side, and I think this created some confusion for the call, it would be floor 2 from side Charlie, but it's really the first floor, right? So anyway, second due engine, position out of the way, walk up, see that. I recognize that. I know that's where it is. and there's confusion on the radio back and forth about what floor and all that kind of stuff. But I'm almost kind of just putting that in the background. We turn the corner, and then let me say this: we have made these mistakes. I am not trying to, just crush another company. I just want everyone to be successful. So just take it that way, please. This is not about crushing another company. This is about trying to learn from stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean, let me just jump in real quick right there, because I had a thought, because I was thinking about that too, because thinking about how frustrated we were. It's not even really with the people or the company. It's kind of like this: we need to be better, all of us, the job, and whether that's our department or the fire department across the board, we need to be better.
Like I said, done it. So turn the corner, and there's a ton of hose. And I mean, the engine is maybe 100 feet from the door, maybe, very close. There's hose everywhere. I mean, all over it. The appropriate line would have been a 200, good to go. And I mean, it looked like there's 400 feet of hose there. And there were shoulder loads that you could tell were just completely dumped off the shoulder. Still, you could pick them up and deploy them. They were almost as if they were packed perfectly. I mean, it's the accordion back and forth. It's right there. And you're like, whoa. And there's a few steps leading up, a landing, and then more steps going into the garden apartment, the common stairwell. And this one's enclosed, and unenclosed doesn't make that big of a difference. People get sucked into that. But anyway, there's a ton of hose there on the steps leading in. So it's like, all right, what in the world? So the problem, and this is the heart of what I'm trying to get at. So understand this. The problem with the garden apartments, and I don't know how widespread this is, but it's in our region, which is a pretty big area, it's widespread. So I suspect, and even some of the videos I watch online, I can see that other people are doing this. So this is an issue. And I think one is the understanding that, you have to really consider what you're going to do if you're going to take Hoseline on steps. And then also how close you get to the entry door. We all tend to a lot of us go real close. We get to that door, and then we're going to impede access, in or out. So the other firefighters, the people coming out of the building, and we had people coming out of the building, like civilians trying to get out with kids and stuff. Actually, yeah. So you have that. If you're right up on that door, man, you are in the way, and you're not gaining. I think that the issue is you're not gaining the advantage that you think you're gaining. You're creating another problem. So that's one with the garden apartments, and in general, a lot of buildings. So that's why we always say, hey, if you get to the entry door and you're the person on the nozzle, always stay 6 feet back, because it allows the door, if it opens outward, to swing out, and it allows people to go in and out, firefighters, civilians, whatever. Gives you a little room. So that's one. The other big problem to keep in mind is bringing excessive amounts of hose into these garden apartment stairwells, these enclosed common stairwells. It just, even if you have the garden apartment where they have, the stairwell on the alpha side, and it's kind of like a hallway. I think you can picture that, where it's like that, it's a wooden stairwell, and it's a hallway that goes to the Charlie side, and then stairs a lot of times on the Charlie side. Mm-hmm. It's still a lot to bring that hose in there. Mm-hmm. You have to be very careful, but definitely just that, common stairwell and closed stairwell is a big issue. So keep that in mind. It's back to the story. There's hose everywhere. So it's like, whoa, this is going to be a serious problem. We walk up, one of our guys already started pulling the second line. So they're pulling that. And then me and the other guy are trying to fix this. So we're pulling hose everywhere, trying to stretch it out before they charge it. There's hose in the stairwell. And then this is the problem. They bring all this hose in. People think, and I think this mentality is, I'm trying to do less work. I want this to be more efficient. But by being more efficient, you're being less efficient. So you're trying to get that hose closer to the door you're going to enter on, or where you're going to enter inside. But then it's too much hose. It gets kinked, and you have all these other problems. And then you see, and if you go to enough of these fires, you just sit there and you watch. If you're not that first engine, you just see people pull all the hose out that they just pulled in. And it's like, well, wait a minute. When you're watching it, it really clicks, and you're like, what are we doing? why are we bringing hose in to then bring it out? What are we accomplishing? So it really, when you step back and you're detached and you see what's going on, it starts to really make sense. So all this hose is going into the building. They've deployed the hose line up to the second floor. So it's actually a first floor fire, second floor, and the nozzle is on this tiny landing that probably is no bigger than 4 feet by maybe 8 max. And I think there's like 2 companies up there, pretty close to 2. They're trying to force a door. They have the line up there. There's just too much going on. There's no room for anyone to operate on that landing. And if that door opens and there's a lot of smoke behind it, people aren't masked up, everyone's going to scatter, and it's going to create problems. So that goes on. So I get sucked into, and this is my mistake, I get sucked into their problem, which is the way things work for us. It is my responsibility to fix their line. I have to get that primary hose line up and running, even as a second engine. And I was given that also by command to say, hey, help them get their line going. So, but just the chaos of everything got to me, and I lost my focus, and I just focused on fixing the line, and somehow lost track that the fire was actually on the first floor, and they have their hose line on the second floor, getting ready to go in. And the stairwell's clear. I mean, that's kind of there's no smoke in the stairwell at that point. No, there's nothing. So anyway, at one point the hose is like zigzagged 3 times, and the door closes on top of the hose. So this is another problem if you haven't been around long enough, and a lot of people, you read it in books and everything else, but until you see it, it really hits home, where the door closed on the hose. So if the line was charged, it would wedge the door shut, with the water being on the outside of the building and the dry hose on the inside. And then I wouldn't be able to open the door, because it's an outward opening door, to get out. So if you had fire coming out in the hallway and the common stairwell, it's really bad, right? Obviously. So luckily that didn't happen. Door wasn't chalked. Opened it up, chalked it, pulled more hose out. I mean, line starts getting charged at this point. So now we're just fighting that and everything else. And it just is very chaotic. A lot of other people start coming in, other companies. Everyone, it's all well-meaning. Everyone wants to try and help and do the right thing, but everyone just starts clogging things up. And now the small little walkway between the door to the apartments on the first floor is just packed. Like, you can't even move because there's so many firefighters. Then the stairs, it's packed going up to the second floor. So then someone says something, they trigger in my head. I'm back and I'm like, yeah, the fire is on the first floor. I was like, okay. So then another company brought their hose in uncharged. And again, in the first floor on probably like a 4 foot by 8 foot area again, they have 100 feet of hose just off their shoulder dropped. And it's like, oh, dude, we're back to where we were, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it's like, so I start pulling that out. And then in the midst of that, realized that my guy had a charged hose line. And then you were there and everything. And you guys got a good position where you got to the door got open, get in there, put the fire out and everything else. So it worked out for us. We put the fire out. But the bigger issue is the hose line issues with bringing that hose in. And that's what I'm really trying to get at, that the episode where I talked about defaults, you have to have defaults on these buildings. They're not that much different. We have a lot of buildings in our area that are garden apartments. A lot of them are only 2 stories with a terrace level. So we can have a default, like a plan. We have SOPs for garden apartments in general, but more of, when I talk about defaults, this is at the company level. This is that gray area of like, what do we actually do to get a hose line in service? Because the SOPs don't go into that detail, very few, right? So we've talked about it in the company, right, where the rule that we came up with, we realized is, of course, if it's terrace level, we're going to charge it outside. Whether we were to enter on site alpha, or if possible, the best option is the Charlie side, because we can walk right in at grade. And if it's the first floor or the second floor, which is most of the buildings, we're going to charge it outside. That is default. there's very few circumstances where I would ever change that. But going down the road, the guys all know that's our plan. And the reason why is because of those problems we just talked about, where we've lived them, we've had issues like that ourselves and had committed some of those same mistakes. And we realized that we're not gaining anything by bringing 100 feet of hose on your shoulder. What are we gaining? I mean, what are we gaining? We're not gaining much. And if you watch, everyone ends up pulling hose outside. So the argument, I think, most of the time you hear, if you really think about it, I think a lot of this is just reflex. Probably goes back to, I don't know, maybe you're training in recruit school, or I don't know. But it goes back to, am I gaining an advantage? Because I think people think they're gaining an advantage because there's the mentality, right? Get as much hose as close as possible to the entry point. That's a common thing in our region, and I hear it at other places. But that's a nuanced statement, right? A little bit. I mean, get it close, but not too much. And everyone fails to say the too much.
Yeah. I mean, after seeing it so many times, I'm not even sure that I would enter that into the terminology at all, that get the hose close.
I agree.
Thing.
But I think that what they're trying to do is, when people are saying that, they're trying to say, again, good intentions. I want to get that line there, ready to go, charge, so we can get in there. But what happens is, and they're trying to save that energy, but it's like, just step back and think about it. Most of the time, a lot of these garden apartments, if it's on the first floor and they're, again, common stairwell, if there's a door, it's enclosed. Once you get inside, you're only going like 10 feet to an apartment door. And then you're going through an apartment. So what are you gaining by bringing the hose in those 10 feet? Because to me, there's a lot more problems, like we talked about. If that door opens on the first floor and smoke and fire come out, you're in a bad spot now. If you have people you're trying to get out, if there's a forcible entry operation taking place, you're creating more problems than you're solving. Where if I just keep that line 6 feet back from the door, charge it, and then we just walk it in there, we don't have to worry. Well, kinks is the other thing. I guess I didn't even get into that. And that's a big problem too, because what'll happen is they have all this hose on the stairs, they'll charge it, and then it's all kinked up, right? And I think, again, I'm going to give a little background because I think it's useful here, is I think in the past, sometimes we got away with that. And when I say in the past, maybe you're still operating like this, where you have fog nozzles that operate at 100 PSI. And I think when we had nozzles that were operating at 100 PSI, we had 1 3/4 lines that were legitimately 1 3/4. The pressures were higher. The lines were a lot less prone to kink at all. And what you see now is a lot of lines are a little bigger than 1 3/4, even though they say 1 3/4, because they're trying to reduce friction loss. And the nozzles, a lot of them, they're fog nozzles. They're getting the same GPM pumped at the right pressure, but the right pressure is now 50 PSI. So the pressures are lower. So I think that makes some of these lines, especially the ones we have, more prone to kinking. So, and I don't think we've really thought about that. So that's a little background historical understanding that I think is helpful for people, because we'll charge them in these spaces and they're just kinked. It's just a disaster, and you're trying to fix them. So again, that first floor, it's like, what are you really gaining? You are not gaining much. Charge that line outside. Move the line in once it's charged, and you're good to go. You're reducing the possibility of fumbling with your mask when the smoke comes out, people trampling on you, screwing up forcible entry, all that kind of stuff. And it just makes sense. And then if it's on the second floor, what are you doing? If you're moving that nozzle up there uncharged, even without extra hose, you're crowding that forcible entry operation. You have all those same problems, and it's only going to the second floor, right? I mean, it really, on a garden apartment, going from floor 1 to floor 2, even if it's like a return stairs or whatever, with a half landing, it's not that hard to move that hose. And the situation we had, it was just a straight run of stairs like you would find in a townhouse or a single family house. So we should be able to do that. So if we just leave that hose outside, and charge it and then take it in, we reduce all these possible problems
Yeah.
and everything runs so much smoother.
It was very clear on that fire that would have been true. And then, not to mention the fact, as you said, there was what felt like 20 firefighters standing around that could have helped move that line. I mean, one of the things we talk about a lot is that it's just not that hard to move that line. And in fact, you'll find that it's a lot easier than trying to manage loops and stacks and kinks and things like that. You know, it moves in. But in this instance, and I think a lot of fires we go to, there's plenty of hands around to help move if there was any kind of challenge. But it's so much easier. Another problem we had on this one was people didn't know, there was so much line all over the place. People didn't even know which one was going to the fire.
Yeah.
So backing up, and we saw this on another fire that we'll probably talk about in another episode, but we saw another where there was so much line all over the place that, you know, performing the backup role was difficult. And I heard after, I didn't see this because I was in the fire department, but somebody told me that at one point it got stuck because the non-operating line was wrapped around the operating line and had kinked. And you know how like the kink, if you ever got your glove stuck in a kink or whatever, it's got some clamping power, you know.
In.
And apparently it kinked so hard on the operating line that it stopped it from moving. I mean, that's again, there's problems that present that you couldn't even imagine, but you put 3 different lines in a 4 by 8 foot space, and those problems are going to come up.
Yeah, and I mean, we have the curse of too many people, and it's and I get it. Sometimes people are operating by themselves or very little help, and it's hard. But at the same time, if you have too many people and the help isn't organized, it creates as many problems as you can think of that we just talked about. So I mean, I know I threw a lot out there, but really what I'm trying to get at the heart of this is to, you know, just to summarize it, is have a default for a garden apartment in your area where I think in just about every case, it makes sense if it's terrace level, first floor, second floor, charge the line outside. Don't bring uncharged hose into a stairwell. It just doesn't make sense. The risk versus benefit. There's so much more risk when you take that line, and so many things that can happen before it's charged versus keeping it outside. And the work to move the line, you know, from a terrace level in or first floor, second floor, it's not much. I mean, don't make this bigger than it is, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. It's a very similar to a single family house. You're not, I know it's bigger, but it's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think of it like the path the line takes. It's not, in those circumstances. But, if it's the third floor, yeah, there's some other stuff I'm not going to get into, different ways to things you can do for that and everything else. But, third floor, yeah, maybe you consider start bringing some dry hose in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's even worth going into. It's worth going into, talk about garden apartments.
I think so. I mean, we're doing it. Let's. I do have one question for you, man. I don't know if this is out of order, but so like you said, it's kind of hard in a drill environment to really show what happens. I mean, we saw it happen, and that's why I think this fire was useful. I'm just wondering, like, if you had somebody that's like, all right, I'm listening, but how do I train my company to do this? What are my talking points?
Yeah, well, I think you got to explain what the problem is first, and say, hey, we're doing this because it clearly state what can go wrong. Talk about the access as far as the door. Talk about what happens if that, and ask them those questions. Like, well, if the door opens and we have an uncharged hose line, we're right there. Well, what can go wrong? Oh, yeah. Smoke and fire, bad. So talk about what can go wrong and ask them. I mean, that's the best way to do it. Instead of you just always telling them, say, what can go wrong? If this happens, what can go wrong? So I would say make sure they understand the problem. And then if you want to demonstrate the skill, I mean, that's pretty easy. Go to a garden apartment in your area, pull the hose line and tell them where you want it. Like say, hey, we're going to pull it here. We're going to keep it back from the door, the entry point, at least 6 feet. You can charge it and whatever. If you want to make sure, you know, you're not getting water in a building, so you're going to get mad at you. Just make sure those couplings are tight and everything else. But you can charge it and then just walk it up to the second floor door, one of the apartments, or the first floor, and just show how easy that is.
It wasn't that hard, right?
It's not hard at all. It's like nothing. I mean, so you can say, look, was that hard?
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, it's not that hard.
It sounds stupid, but I feel like that's kind of one of the key realizations here is like, oh
yeah,
that wasn't that hard.
Because people, for some reason, think it's really hard moving hose in a garden apartment up to a second floor versus
but not a single family.
A single family. I rarely hear that argument. You know, so
and in a lot of
or
ways,
townhouse. Or
what
whatever.
you're doing is treating a garden apartment on the first and second level like a single family because
it's very similar.
Yeah, I mean we're deploying the hose in the space that we find.
I mean, you really think about it. I mean, what does your hose do most of the time? It's going around the left-hand corner, right-hand corner. It's going upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of making like a 180 or something. I mean, most of the movements you think about, it's how many angles are there? There's not many.
Yeah.
You're just
I'm not a mathematician, but
it has to do more so, I think, with distance.
Yeah.
How far does the line have to go? But again, most garden apartments, the distance isn't that much. I mean, 50 feet of hose for most garden apartments, probably 90% of them out there, it's going to cover the garden apartment, 50 feet of hose. So you're talking about 50 feet max, and then maybe in that stairwell, another 50 feet, and then whatever your setback is. But you're not moving the whole setback typically. So they're going all the way back to the engine. But yeah, I would just explain the problem, charge the line, walk it up there. The other thing you could do is you could also do what some people say and bring all that hose in and drop it.
Yeah.
Just have one of the firefighters do it. Say, hey, all right, now flake it out. And the other thing is have people watch each other do it. So if they take it in there, what'll happen is, and they take that whole shoulder load in, usually 100 feet, and you see them, all right, flake it out. And you'll see, it's obvious watching people expend all this energy flaking it out and then see how much time that is. I mean, time it on, your watch or something like that and see that and then have everyone else watch. Or record it. I mean, that's another way to do it. It gets you, if you want your whole company involved, someone's like, oh, well, I want to see the whole company do it. Then record it on your phone and you can, time there and everything else. And then you can show them, look how long that took. And then record on your phone, deploying the line outside, charging it and walking to the door. How much time did that take? I think that probably would be the easiest way because they can see themselves doing it. And they're like, oh yeah, we wasted like a minute to 2 minutes trying to just get this hose flaked out. They had it charged and, less than a minute, they were at the apartment door. Mm-hmm. I think that really shows it. But even when we're talking about flaking it out, you're not even now talking about charging it. So then charge that line there if you can. Like, again, you may not want to, anger the complex. You may want to make sure those couplings are real tight, hopefully, and, charge it and see what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the problems and one of the training scars, and we talk about this a lot, is people do these hose deployment drills and everything, but they don't charge it. And I get it. It can be hard to find the right opportunity to charge line with the right building and scenario and everything, and not just in the parking lot of the firehouse. But charging line in real scenarios is one of those variables that we don't do often enough in training, and it's kind of one that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would, after saying it here, I definitely recommend trying to film them doing it, and then showing them what that looks like and see how much time gets eaten up, and point out to them that they end up just pulling a lot of hose right back outside.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, if you're pulling it right back outside, why didn't you just start there?
Start there. Yeah.
So, you're saying going into more garden apartment stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're there. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So we have the first default, which is terrace 1, 2, charge the line outside. Boom. That's what we're going to do. Don't have to think about it. Moving in, do our thing. Work, basic skills of moving hose. So floor 3, I start to think about it. What does it make sense to take dry hose in? And it that's kind of a breakover point. It does. I mean, you can still move hose pretty high up. I mean, I know we have the drill like we like to do monthly where we charge a line outside of a stairwell at a training facility, and then we just move the hose up to the equivalent of like basically the sixth floor using a total of just 4 people, with really the rule is you have 1 person on the nozzle and then 2 people doing most of the moving, and then we have the driver, and they can't come into the stairwell. They can only move hose outside. And it's doable. It's not easy, but that's up to about the 6th story. And you could do that if you don't have a training area facility, if you can find some kind of parking garage or something. That's probably the easiest place to do it. And you really don't even need to be on a hydrant because you're just charging the line. You're not really flowing water. You're just worrying about moving a charged line. So I would encourage you to do that. Find a parking garage or something and practice. It's a great place to practice if you have that available. But anyway, when you get to floor 3, you got to think about, okay, how am I going to do this? If you don't have a plan for doing this, you're in a really bad spot. And I think a lot of people don't have a plan. And then if you don't know what works best, that's another issue. So I think we really drilled down. There's a few things you got to understand. If you're taking hose into a stairwell, I always like to say you have to think about it as a dry hose. If you're taking dry hose into a stairwell, you got to think about it like a trap. And I'm not saying that to say you shouldn't do it, but I'm saying that you should be cautious. Like really think about what you're doing and be cautious. Don't take it for granted. Like we're good, we can do it. Pay attention to what you're doing, and you need to have a plan. You need to have done it before. So to me, I guess the 2 options, and we've tried this, is you take the shoulder load in and it flakes off your shoulder, or you deploy the hose outside, you take the nozzle and you just feed dry hose basically in a straight line all the way up to the floor. We tried them, like we said, our science experiments, testing the time. And both methods were almost exactly the same, believe it or not. So, it's like, okay, you could use those 2 methods. When you're taking a shoulder load inside a stairwell, you need to know how far that shoulder load's going to get you, right? You want to have an idea. So we found when we did it on most stairwells, standing at the base of the stairs, it's usually going to get you somewhere to like a 3rd floor, like 100 feet of hose. And in most of the garden apartment stairwells, most normal stairwell configurations. And maybe it's a little more, maybe it's a little less. It just kind of depends on, some distances of the, stairs and the height of the building. But so, it's like, okay, this is going to get me to the 3rd floor, because the issue you don't want to have is where if you're taking it to the 2nd floor and you have that on your shoulder, now you're going to have a lot of extra hose and you're going to still end up pulling it outside. Right back out. So if we're going to go to the 2nd floor, I have 100 feet of hose on my shoulder, I know I'm not going to have a lot of extra additional hose. So I should be okay because I'm not going to run into those kinking problems. And you got to be careful. You don't want the hose to slide between, the railing and all that kind of stuff. So that's one method. And then, like I said, the other one is outside. I think you have to know both. And the reason why is, one, if you make a mistake, if you deploy it outside, say the firefighter does that, you didn't tell them to do that, but they do, then what are you going to do? What's your next move? Well, I got it. We're just, hey, you grab that nozzle, you help feed hose. We just feed it up, communicate back and forth. You got to practice this a little, but still pretty easy. You could walk someone through it almost in the heat of battle. Say, go up here. All right, cool. We got enough hose. We're good to go. So you can fix that problem real quick. And that's probably the easiest, least likely way to screw up the deployment. And that works pretty well for up to floor 3. Pretty well. And same thing, shoulder load, you can do that. That's a little more complicated, but you just got to make sure you don't drop the whole shoulder load early or something like that. So, you could do that. Now when you're talking about 4, if going up to the 4th floor, it takes a little more time. So, you're going to have to, you can still do the feed. We call it the stairwell feed, where we just, deploy it outside, walk up with the nozzles.
Like a dry feed.
Yep. Just, like a straight line all the way up. It takes a little more time, but it's doable to the fourth, and then that's charged. It would be charged, and then you would have to move charged hose up the stairs, which again is this practice skill, but we can do it. And then, you know, I mean, garden apartments, I know there's some like 5 stories, but now you're getting close to that mid-rise, and I don't know. It's probably a little too complicated, I think, to talk about. That you have to show that. But I would say those options of knowing that 100 feet of hose on my shoulder will get me to about the 3rd floor, and you know, I can do that, or I can deploy it outside and walk it up. If you have shoulder loads that are 150 feet, you got to know where that's going to get you. That's usually, for us, it typically is around the 5th floor. So now you have you got to be a little more, I guess you got to do a few things to make sure you don't bring too much hose in, because if you're going to the 3rd floor, you don't want excess hose. So we found that you knock 2 folds off. That takes a floor off. So for us, these are very easy to remember. Hey, just take 2 folds off. You're going to get to the 4th floor. You want to get to the 3rd, take 4 folds off. So, I mean, things like that, being comfortable with the hose lines. But man, 1, 2, and terrace, just please don't take the hose in uncharged. You're creating more problems. Just stay away from it. Everything's going to work out so much better.
I agree. And I think we weren't even planning on recording this episode today, but after that fire, I think we were both kind of inspired to do so. Because again, I mean, it works. You know, some of this stuff we've seen it work, and we've seen it fail, and we want to put it out there so people can at least try it. And you know, and maybe there's some people listening that have like, yeah, I've seen that problem before. I've seen that hose mess. You know,
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, think about it. Try it. You know,
Yeah, it's real. I mean, I see it on videos. I know this the region we're in. Every department in the region, I've seen them do it. And I would say most people, that's their move. They just bring a ton of hose in, and then they throw it everywhere. They have all these kinks. It's total chaos.
Yeah, it is.
We shouldn't be doing that. You know, we should learn from each other. Learn from my mistakes that I made over the years, and hopefully it doesn't happen again, and pass this on and have those defaults, have those plans. I know I've been telling you, I'm working on a tack line manual, hose manual. I need to get that finished. I need to get the pictures and stuff, but it gets into the weeds with some of the stuff. The reason is to help people understand it doesn't have to be that complicated. So it's, you know, whenever I finish that up, I'll let people know, and maybe put some, you know, QR codes in there with like some videos of some of this stuff. But just getting the pictures and the video and all that stuff takes a lot of, you know, obviously effort and time. So we'll see. But hopefully I can kind of elaborate on more of this stuff in that to help people and give people an easy way of doing this. And, you know, if they haven't been exposed to some of these ideas, hopefully get exposed to and help them. So, you know, your operations are smooth.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And in the meantime, I think there's, you know, enough here to think about, and, you know, just nothing, like we always say, if nothing else, just open up that conversation about, you know, what are we doing at garden apartments? Get out to a garden apartment in your area if you have them, and you know, maybe try the parking garage drill, you know, and just start building. Like a lot of these skills just kind of build on top of each other, and it's actually kind of a satisfying like aha moment when some of this stuff just starts clicking together, and you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. And again, I mean, I have done these mistakes myself. So if someone, you know, the company that had the issue the other day, if they're listening, I have done these mistakes myself as a firefighter and an officer. So my whole point with this is passing on what I've learned. Don't take it any other way, because it's not meant to be that way. It's meant to make everyone better. And I told them that. They know that. You know, the officer, good guy, he's trying to, you know, we're going to help him with some training together and stuff. And so we're a little smoother as companies operating together. And I mean, that's a great thing. I love training with other companies. So, I think at the end of the day, I think the experience is going to turn out to be real positive for the future. And I think we're all going to be better off for it. So learn from my mistakes.
All right, cool. Well, that sounds good. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for stopping by. Check us out at firegroundcompany.com. You'll find links to all our social media accounts and our YouTube channel, and you'll stay up to date on everything we're working on. We also have a store on our website where you can support us as we grow this community, plus working on some great courses to help you strengthen your leadership in the fire department and support its traditions and culture. Last but not least, subscribe to the podcast, give us a rating, leave a comment, spread the word, get this out to the firefighters who are hungry to make the job even better.
The Fireground Company Podcast.